Well, thank you for having me. I am currently the Director of Coaching Education for United Soccer Coaches, which is a member of US Soccer, and we are the biggest membership organization for soccer coaches in the world, and I am in charge of the educational programs. I'm a native of Great Britain, and I played amateur and college soccer in Great Britain, and then upon my graduation from undergraduate, I traveled to America in 1987. I was able very quickly to work in summer soccer camps with young children. That led to a college soccer coaching job, which in America is typically a full-paid, full-time opportunity. At the same time, I started working in coaching education, delivering courses for US Soccer. After one college opportunity, I became the Director of Coaching and Player Development for the children of Minnesota, one of our 50 states. Where we had 80,000 participating players and coaches. I then did another stint of college in a very good college in Minnesota. And the last 6.5 years, I've been working for United Soccer Coaches, delivering coaching education. I really enjoyed my playing time as a fairly high quality amateur player. But I always had seemingly had a vocation for teaching and sharing. And I don't believe that a good player necessarily makes a good coach. And I don't believe that necessarily a good coach makes a good coach educator. So I am fortunate that I have this coach education role. And I think I have some ability and natural inclination towards it. And I'm able to work with mum and dads coaching the grassroots. And I've had the opportunity to meet Mourinho and Benitez and Klopp. And some of the great coaches. So I have I've had the opportunity, thanks to soccer, for a good broad experience. So soccer in the USA, I think, is in a very strong position. We have always been strong in the support of our national teams, or in the last 20, 30 years. So both our men's and women's teams have been well supported. And our men qualified for every World Cup from 90 up until the most recent one, which was disappointing. And of course, our women have won World Cups, and our youth national teams do well. I think one of the big pluses in American soccer over the last 25 years has been the development of the MLS League. And after some mistakes and growing pains, now you see a very strong league. Atlanta averages well over 50, 60,000 people. David Beckham's new franchise will be in Miami. So at the top end, I think it's in a strong situation. From the grassroots, we have the challenges of baseball, basketball, American football, ice hockey. We also have the challenge of not engaging all of our communities. So our Latino community participates in soccer, but maybe not as much as our African American community. Also in our culture, it can be quite expensive to play as a youth player, and youth becomes high school, becomes college. So we are always trying to work out ways to make more open opportunities for kids to come into the sport. But overall, I would say also with the successful bid for the Men's World Cup in 2026, I think it's a strong soccer environment. And it also provides great career opportunity for coaches, both here and coming from overseas, to coach at the highest professional level, but even coach at the grassroots level, because the clubs do employ coaches for that opportunity. Yes, the challenging thing to understand for a European or a South American is that a coach working with a community club of children in a small community can have a full-time living. So very often, our European colleagues with UEFA A and B licenses, they hope to coach in MLS, or they hope to coach in our second divisions. And there are very few jobs. There are some barriers for internationals because of immigration and so on and so forth. And so they see that as the only career path, as it might be in another country. But what is really interesting in America is if the coach is willing to maybe not coach the highest level player, but is happy coaching community soccer or college, there are literally hundreds and thousands of paying jobs which allow a person to make soccer a full-time career. They will never necessarily be coaching in the MLS, but they might be coaching their community, helping the kids, helping the parents with good community and soccer through the community, and make a good living. So the opportunities here are very great for an international. The main challenge is not the opportunity, it's the visa. Is either coming with the appropriate visa or finding an American organization to sponsor you. So your experiences in LA at our convention is how international coaches can make those connections. I think the experienced coach would tell you that perspective, being well grounded, not being very high in the emotional swings of being too excited when you are successful and too disappointed when you're less successful. But I think that comes with experience. So the quicker a coach can find their center, I think is very helpful. I think good knowledge of the game, obviously, not necessarily being a great player like Luis Figo, but being a student of the game and knowledgeable and having credibility when you talk to players and when you talk to other coaches. So I do think qualifications, the UEFA awards, the awards we have here are important. Clearly, any coach to be successful must be an effective communicator. They must be an effective communicator one-on-one with players and staff, and then with the group. And they also potentially in the modern game must be effective communicators with all the parties outside of the family. So I'm a kind of a fan of Mourinho because I do think there is a lot more intelligence in what he does and how he manages information than sometimes the English media for sure give him. So I think it is this overall, I think the communication, the qualifications, the education, but being true to yourself, knowing what your qualities are. So if you're a very excitable character like Jurgen Klopp, embrace that and be that big personality. Currently in Great Britain, Pellegrini is coaching West Ham, a much more understated, quiet guy. So he plays to his natural strengths. As you as a player would play to your strengths, I think as a coach manager, you play to your personality. And that requires looking inside and being self-aware and being self-knowledgeable. I don't think coaches very often take enough time to do an internal study of themselves. Tactical insight and tactical flexibility. At the technical level, I think it's very clear that you have to be flexible with your ideas and your ability to change the game. So we would talk about you have a plan A, but I think the modern coach must have the plan B and the plan C, and he must or she must have shared that plan with the players. Sometimes you see coaches, even at the highest level, maybe Argentina at the World Cup, all of a sudden something changes, but the players are looking around, and these are the best players in the world. So I think that flexibility and preparation. Yeah, I would, it may not be something that people do naturally, but I would actually maybe write down my goal, my objective, and then start to plan the steps on the way. I know a little bit about Mourinho, but obviously being an interpreter with Bobby Robson and then lower management and all the way through. So a pathway and clearly some intention, some planning on his part and dedication. But I would also say, if you are a young coach and you are prepared to live out of a small bag of clothes and sleep on the floor and travel, then you can put yourself in some really good experiences. If, however, you have a family and you must put some food on the table, then you maybe don't give yourself the same opportunities and you can't dedicate your life to soccer the same way that the top managers must dedicate their lives. So when you talk to Mourinho, he talks about his wife and family, and clearly he has those in a compartment, but he obviously is 80, 90% of the time with Manchester United. So every coach must have a sense of how much they can commit, effort and time and money. And sometimes the inability to commit and the time and the effort and the money is not a fault of the coach, it is just their circumstance. I also think that the coach has to be, again, this perspective. So the day that you're at the very top, the only place you can go is down. And the great thing about soccer is the day that you're at the very bottom, there will always be another opportunity, another club, another location, another city. And so the modern coach must be prepared for the ups and the downs and must keep fighting to the middle and not be discouraged. I think you see a lot of coaches who have short careers because they only live when it's successful and they can't handle the disappointment. And the great managers, I think, and the great coaches are the ones that understand that the game will always find you out if you don't keep honest. It's an excellent question. And it's a little challenging for people from another nation to understand. So I'll give a quick history. We have a federation, US Soccer. They are our FIFA affiliate, and they run an educational program like any FA would do around the world. But because of the need of our FA, our soccer federation, to also run the national teams, because we didn't have pro leagues for our men until 1996, other organizations got into education as well, including my association, United Soccer Coaches. So from 1983 until approximately 2015, my organization in US Soccer delivered coaching education, which was very similar, and coaches could just choose which one they wished. In the last 3 or 4 years, our influences have come from UEFA, currently very strong from the KNVB in Holland. And so our US Soccer Federation has come up with a very Dutch-inspired model of coaching education. My organization continues to do coach education, but more along our traditional US soccer model, which has a lot of German inspiration, some British. The thing that is missing in our coaching education in this country is the Latin, Hispanic, South American, Portuguese, Spanish influences. We're much more Western, Northern European in our influences. A few years ago, most European FAs thought that we did a great job in the sports sciences, physical conditioning, technology, match analysis. Now, of course, the rest of the world is doing this too. Our youth coaches, grassroots coaches, college, high school, I would say are as good as any in the world. Absolutely, if they've been trained. Obviously, our professional managers, we haven't had as many exported to other countries yet. And Bob Bradley did a short time with Premier League. It wasn't so successful. But I do believe our top managers certainly could coach in the top leagues in Europe. And I do believe that our well-trained youth coaches are as good as any in the world at the grassroots level. Yes, I would say we are a strong educational nation where so many people do attend at least 2 or 4 years of university. This is very common. It's a lot different than my experiences growing up in Great Britain. So a lot of American people are already predisposed. They're ready to take education. It is still a minority when you look at all of the coaches in the game at the grassroots level. It's still a minority that access education. At the top professional levels, everybody has taken their UEFA or federation badges. But there is enthusiasm for education. There is also, as you saw in LA at the convention, American coaches have essentially two thoughts. There are some that wish to go vertically, E to D to C to B to A, and then pro license. But there are many coaches who get their first educational experience or their second, and then they just wish to have continuing education. And I think this is a really important space. So if you're coaching your community club and you get 2-3 hours of good training, just some ideas, then 6 months later, we bring the education to your club again and we add to it, not to make you a top coach in the professional league, but to make you an increasingly more effective youth coach with continuing education. And the American public is very hungry for that, very enthusiastic.